Hi everyone, good morning. Coming at you from the living room floor. Hey, I'm back. I made it home yesterday. Uh, Again, I'm so thankful. I was really worried about these court dates this week. I was really just like, it had ripped me up inside, and I was just really going through it like never before up to now. And the only thing I knew that I could do at the time was just like keep hoping, keep praying, keep having faith. And it was hard. It was a steep hill for a few weeks there. And everything was dark. And when I say dark, everything was literally dark. I thought I was depressed. I mean, I was sure I was depressed. I'm sure my anxiety was affecting me. I kept the house dark. I pulled the shades. I wouldn't turn the lights on. I decided I was just going to be, and I was going to be in the dark. So that's how that panned out. Uh, Yesterday I went to court. I didn't sleep. I was up at about 3 in the morning and I stayed up. I tried to get back to sleep and I couldn't. So I got up in the morning, I got ready, and I called an Uber because I didn't want to drive there. I had to be super vigilant. Um, they've they've remanded me to custody, imprisoned me in that dungeon in that county jail for no reason before, with a really high bail. So my car was towed. I remember the day they took me in. It was January 9th, and the judge is an absolute sociopath, and he put a $220,000 bail on me, even though I was wearing an ankle monitor, and I'll explain that too a little later. For no reason. The prosecutor had added a count that was already in the complaint, and he just felt free to put another $220 bail on me, although he, the same judge, back in December of 2016 had put a $120,000 bail on me illegally. That time it was illegal and not just unconscionable. Uh, After the 120,000, there was 170,000 put on me. There were circumstances that allowed them to put the 170,000, but they shouldn't have done that. At any rate, it was a loophole that they uh, slimed through. And yeah, I'm still very upset. It's traumatizing and devastating. It's something that you don't just get over, you know, but you learn a way to coexist with it. So I called an Uber yesterday, and the app said, okay, your Uber's here. So I went outside. Whoever was driving came and drove right by. And I called him and I asked him, why did you just drive by and leave me? I was like, really? I mean, I was like in the movies, like, what the? Anyways, I called him and he hung up. He hung up. I mean, he didn't even see me. He just came and left. I saw him because I just happened to walk outside, but he didn't even pull in where the house is. He was on the street and he just made a U-turn and left. And when I called him, he was like, he didn't sound too mentally stable. And he hung up on me after that. And then I got a notification that he had canceled the ride. And I did not want to be late. I did not want to be late under any circumstances. So I immediately called another one, and I made sure she got me there in time. In fact, I was early as always. I was too early, as I always have been. So I sat there for a long time. This judge is decent. He's human. Um, they did appoint me a new attorney, so we'll see how that works out. I'm keeping hope. I'm keeping faith. There were some dark moments yesterday too in the court when the case was called. But I also prayed a lot while I was sitting in there. And the weapons they form shall not prosper. And that's what they're up to every day. The prosecutors, the people involved. But I think about something. I've spent a lot of time in jails and prisons, unfortunately. And there was one time in 2012 when I was in there that I did not belong in there. I shouldn't have been in there. It was a vindictive employer who had made an allegation against me. And at the time I was on probation, so it allowed the court, a different court, to just stick me in there. And I was so down and out in there. I was so down and out. I remember there were a couple of chaplains that would come through, and this was the same jail in LA County, Century Regional Detention Facility. And the chaplains there are hypocrites as well. But there was one woman who was so genuinely kind. She was real. She was down to earth. And that's the thing. I really only prefer to be around real people. Don't we all? Not everybody. No, actually they don't. At any rate, this woman gave me a book and she really wanted me to read it. It was called Hind's Feet on High Places, and I'm sure a lot of you know which book that is. It was my first time being given that book, and I didn't think much of it until I started reading it. And this book was astounding. The message, it's allegorical, all of it, very allegorical. It's an old book. It is the most meaningful and beautiful book I've ever read. And it gave me a map for my life, because even though that came to pass, it took about 8-9 months. It came to pass. It was really difficult. And it was another time when I refused to plead, and they wanted me to plead out, and I refused. This did go to a judge's trial, because on a probation violation you don't get a jury trial in California, and I was found not guilty. But it was scary. It was really scary. And while I was in there, I read the book, and the main character, Much Afraid, really wanted to learn about God and be with God. And she knew that it wasn't going to be easy, but she had no idea what was ahead of her. But she would do things to get closer to God. She even told God, I want to follow you. I want to do this. And then she would take, a step forward, another step back, a step forward, a step back. And finally, when she did meet up with the Lord, the shepherd in the book, it's explained. The shepherd told her, and in the book, it's always he. I always say that God and faith, just like the universe, if it's all collective, it has no gender. It's very real. It is an entity. It's the energy that we put out. At any rate, she followed the Lord, and he told her, before we set out, I'm going to give you 2 companions. And there are these 2 women. One is called Sorrow, and the other one is called Suffering. And she buckled. She said, no, no, no. She kicked and screamed and she fought it. And the Lord, God, told her, these 2 are the ones that'll keep you strong. And in her journey, and she had a very long journey, They're the ones that kept her strong. Sorrow and suffering keep you strong. The butterfly and the cocoon. You know, they're necessary. And at the time when you're going through it, like I'm going through it now, I know it's necessary, but I don't want it. I'm not willing to have it. I don't want it. There are times when I'm thinking, if this is what it's about, to be with you and to believe in you, I don't want it. There were many times these past few weeks, but then I kept thinking about this book. I kept thinking back to this book, and the map that this book set for me is what kept me going, because I knew what was happening with me. You know, I was literally breaking out. My face is still peeling. Like Job, I mean, I was breaking out for no reason. I had regular facials, and literally a day after the facials, I would break out, where that had never happened to me before. I was breaking out really bad, actually, my face, my neck. But other than washing my face and scrubbing my face every day and just putting on sunscreen, I let it go. I gave up on that. And I said, I know, I said to myself, I know what's going on. So I'm just going to just let it go, you know? Don't go back to an esthetician. Don't, just leave it. And there came a time in these past few weeks when I told myself, I don't have a choice but to just be, to just be. That's it. That's all I can do. And at one point I spoke with someone, and he told me some things that really have happened and come to pass. We each have our own way of dealing with things, but there's a way to walk on the journey, and it's really by yourself. Nobody can walk it for you. If you have friends and family, if you have supporters, that's great. I've never had anybody. I've done this on my own. And in the beginning of my life, if somebody had told me this is what I was headed for, I would have buckled too, just like Much Afraid. I would have buckled, and we all would. I don't think, at least nobody that I know, would ever say, okay, I welcome this. We're not martyrs. We're not. And again, like I said, there are times when I just say, you know what? I can't. If this is what it means to follow you, I can't do it. But yet I pick it up and I keep going and I keep going. And I'm glad that I do. Looking back, I'm glad that I do. In hindsight, I see everything in hindsight is actually 2010. Much better than 2020. It sets things out so clearly for you, and sometimes you can't see it until you look back. I mean, these are the facts of life, you know. And my candles. I love my candles. I'm just grateful, and it's far from over. There's a lot to still do. There are a lot of steps to take, and this journey is ahead of me, and I see it clearly. And there are going to be moments, but I'm going to remember this, and I know what's coming up. But I really am grateful. You have to count your blessings do multiply. There are stops and starts, but keep going, keep going. Know that faith and God are the energy that you put out there and the energy that comes back to you. Keep putting out good, and eventually, sooner or later, for some it's sooner than later. It's different for people. It comes back. It comes back. And I do put out good energy out there. I help others Not because I want anything from them. I don't. I've learned that. It makes me feel good. Um, I really want to thank Josh in Nevada. Uh, Josh, you've really been big. You've been big, and everything you said, everything you did for me in those moments. Thank you, Josh. Um, and Josh in Florida, remember something. You are not the things that you suffer, and you're not defined by the people who make you suffer that way. Never ever accept that in your thoughts. Just remember, keep pushing and keep going, and there will come a time when you don't have to push. Uh, you know, uh, you'll glide along, and then there are times when you have to push again. Keep pushing, keep pushing. It gets easier. It gets easier because you know. Thank you, Josh and Josh. Thank you so much. You guys are great, and everybody else. I'm just glad to be here, and I know things will get a lot better. Thank you, and keep having faith, and your faith will have you. Thanks. Bye.